Chris Renkel alongside Richard Skinner. As always, Skinny, the last practice for the Bengals head up to Chi-Town for those joint practices with the Bears. And boy, do we have a lot to get into today. We'll start with right off the top, Brad Robbins leaving practice while they were warming up. Not what you want to see for a guy who's trying to make this team as the punter. But when we talked to him in the locker room, he seemed very upbeat about it, and he said it's a hip flexor thing. So leg injuries on punters generally aren't a good thing.
No, they're not, especially, this kind of late in the game. I mean, we're approaching preseason game number 2. Preseason game number 3 is going to come quickly. It does give Ryan Renkel, I would assume, probably a chance to get all the punts in the joint practices, all the punts in the last 2 preseason games. And maybe that's a good thing, because then you can make a decision there. I've thought all along, whichever one loses that punter battle winds up on this team's practice squad. So maybe that's where it trends. Maybe you can put Brad on an injured list, and give him some time to fully heal and see how Renkel maybe does. And maybe Brad comes back and punts in the finale. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, it throws a wrench into things.
I was very impressed with how well he took it mentally. And he said, hey, it's part of the play, not my plan, but I'm just going to take it as it goes. You like to see that kind of mentality after a special teams guy, because so much of what they do is mental. And he brought up the fact that he's still going to get the mental reps through it, but this is a guy, I think he was behind the 8 ball coming in, and this certainly is not going to help him not being out there, and it sets up Ryan Renkel to potentially take the spot.
Now, he had a good day, I thought, on Saturday. He did have the 37-yarder on his first punt, but it wasn't return. He winds up with a 50-yard average gross and a 45-yard average net. His net average was actually higher than Renkel. But, man, when you see him punt, Renkel, I mean, it's just his leg is just huge. I mean, it feels effortless for him to get off 55 to 60-yard punts. The question is obviously the consistency of it. And maybe, again, this is a good thing to see him get a chance to say, hey, you got them all from the joint practices on. Let's see what you can do when we give you punt after punt after punt after punt after punt. Because eventually, law of averages might catch up to you a little bit. So, maybe that decision will be made for them, either good for Ryan Renkel or bad for Ryan Renkel.
The Robbins thing was just the first thing that came out. Zach Taylor addressed us after practice, did not take any further questions, but B.J. Hill welcoming a new child into the world. Congratulations to B.J. That's why he wasn't here. Jake Browning's dealing with a rib issue. Not great for a backup quarterback. And I'm missing a couple, but the big one was Jamar Chase is now day-to-day. I don't know if it's several or many days, but he is day-to-day. Is this injury, or is this the next phase of the holdout?
I can't imagine it's injury, because I think he would have said it was injury
if
that was the case. It still has to do with the holding, in my opinion, and now I guess technically as a holdout if he's not here. Walked by where his car's parked. His car wasn't in the spot. This was after practice, so he could have been in the building, left right as soon as practice. He might have been here today at all. We don't know. I mean, there were no follow-up questions allowed to Zach Taylor today. He was not scheduled to speak with us. But because of, to your point, the Robbins situation, the Browning situation, the Hill, and then not seeing Chase, we asked for him, and to his credit, Zach did come over. But all he did was issue a statement, and again, a very vague statement of day-to-day. He didn't tell us that he had the plan going, so maybe the plan is now out the window, because that's all we've gotten from this point forward was they've got a plan. Well, maybe the plan's now gone by the wayside.
It wasn't just a plan. There was also great communication about that plan, and they were on the same page of the plan.
I'm not sure they are.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting that too. What's the end game has always been our question. Now that Jamar's holding out, he's still under contract for another year, 2 years.
Well, now he's subject to fines.
Right.
CBA signed in 2020. Players under rookie contracts, if they have unexcused absences from practice, are subject to $40,000 of practice fines. Now, that's a lot, and it could add up, obviously, all of those things. It can also be washed away when he signs a contract extension, right? You bake some of that money back in, and all's right with the world. But that is a mandate from the CBA signed in 2020. The reason they did that is they were trying to avoid these situations of players holding out. But the money is so great that I think these players a lot of times say, I'm going to make it up on the back end anyway, so the heck with it. I'll do what you want to do and find me. We do not know if today was excused or unexcused, because again, all we know is day-to-day. Maybe it was excused. Maybe there was a reason. I think we'd have been given that answer if that was the case, so I have a hard time believing that it was an excused absence. And we'll see, does he go to Chicago? Is he on the field for the joint practice? Again, and then does this then linger into next week? And then at that point, it's for real. I wrote this 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to stand by it. If he was really serious about this, I think he had to be serious about missing games. And if we're doing this now, again, maybe this is something that he feels like, hey, this is the last thing I can push to make them get this contract extension done. And then maybe at that point, maybe he does blink. But, man, if this is the next step he's taken, I'm not so sure this cat's ready to blink at all.
The question I have, Zach Taylor is such a good players coach.
Yes.
He's able to, almost an NBA-like coach mentality of, you can massage those egos, you can get guys to rally together, put their own things aside. If you start finding him, is this going to drive a further wedge between Jamar and ownership about getting that deal done?
The problem is it's mandatory. I mean, that's
Right.
literally, so you have to do it. Again, like I said, these things can get washed away. I think it was one of the bosses got fined for missing a bunch of practices in camp, and then they kind of baked it into the contract, so it kind of goes away. And that'll probably be the case with Jamar. But, to your point, man, I think it's gone from people going, oh, everybody's overblowing this, to now looking and going, this is a real thing. I mean, this now is to the point of, he misses some regular season games. When we saw practice today without Jamar Chase, without T. Higgins, Joe Burrow looked as frustrated as I've seen him all camp. I mean, guys weren't getting open. He was forcing balls into traffic, had a ball that was tipped and intercepted. Josh Newton tipped it. Joe Bocci, the linebacker, intercepted it. And he looked visibly frustrated. I mean, there were times he kind of took a knee and was off on his own island in thoughts. And so, does this start creeping into him going, am I going to get my main guy back or not? And it's become a really weird situation.
You led me right into talking about practice today. We've talked for the last about maybe 5 practices. The defense has kept having good days. Today, another good day for the defense, and this offense seems to be getting visibly frustrated, like you said, with Joe Burrow. You can tell he was upset, and he has every right to be if his top receivers aren't there and the guys can't get open. This practice going into Chicago, now it's training camp, you can have bad practices, but now you're going into Chicago, and it's been a couple bad practices in a row. Where's this team at right now?
Well, I'm going to take the drive against Tampa Bay, the drive that the offense had for a touchdown, as a good sign.
Right.
Again, this is sometimes you don't know about training camp practices. With the Bengals running the stuff that the defense has seen so many times now, that they know everything that's coming,
Right.
They know where routes are going, they know how to pass off guys, all of those things. I think you will know a little bit more, though, when you see the joint practice against Chicago's one of, is this now an ongoing struggle, or is this just, hey, the defense has your number because they know exactly what you're doing? And a team that didn't know exactly what you were doing, although it didn't play its starters in Tampa Bay, you went right down the field and scored on them. So I think we'll know more after that. So I wouldn't push the panic button, but the defense does have the number at the moment. There's no doubt.
Deep dish pizza, yay or nay?
I'm more of a New York style guy. But
Okay, I'm there with you. I've had good deep dish, though.
The one I've not had, and we're not going there, I know why you asked the question, because of Chicago, the Detroit style pizza I've not had.
You haven't had Jets?
No,
Jets
I've heard
okay, it's pretty good, too. I mean, it's pizza at the end of the day. It's hard to mess that up. Richard Skinner and I breaking down another day of training camp. The Bengals now go to Chi-Town for some joint practices with the Bears, all leading up to that opening week, less than a month away.